Aussie Battler podcast with your host, Mike Holt.
Are you interested in podcasts that uncover the truth? Tune into Widdershins podcast. Straight from science fiction, we uncover the technologies being developed right under our noses. We bring to you the world's leading scientists, engineers, and experts to discover just how far away these things really are from becoming our reality. www.widdershinspodcast.com.
People around the world are asking how we have got to this point in our history. Why have governments been able to shut down whole countries while taking away our rights and destroying businesses and our future? Now, we have the same problems here in Australia as many other countries. We all know that there is something seriously wrong with our political system, but how have the political parties managed to ignore our constitution, brought in their own law system and created a dictatorship that is now telling us when we can leave our homes and even who we can associate with? There's something seriously wrong, isn't there, folks? I'll try and explain as briefly as possible the main turning points in our history since we became a nation in 1901. Once you see how the politicians have betrayed our trust in them and committed massive fraud and treason, you can then continue your own investigations that will help you become a part of the growing number of people who are ready to step in and help fix the problems the traitors have created. Our forefathers worked hard to create a nation out of 6 British colonies. The crowning achievement of their decades of hard work was the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act that came into being on January the 1st, 1901. Now, the Constitution lays out a blueprint for a federal government and 6 states with their own constitutions, but subordinate to the Commonwealth one. During the first 20 years of our nation, the country grew and prospered. In fact, it became one of the most wealthy nations in the world. And this was supported by the People's Bank, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Then along came that little man with a huge ego, Labor Prime Minister Billy Hughes, who, without the approval of the people voting in a referendum, signed Australia up as a founding member of the League of Nations. Later, the League of Nations became the United Nations. Ever since then, all policy and laws have been dictated by the United Nations. Some people say that Hughes's unilateral action created the Australian Republic, but without a referendum, that is null and void. The only reason the political parties have got away with their crimes and treason is because the people were never fully informed. Without informed consent, no agreement is worth the paper it is written on. Hughes was just the first of many politicians to willfully deceive us. Labor has always been part of the international communist agenda to create a one-world government. The next step in their plans was to take total control of the Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief in 1960. The political parties then went to war against Vietnam with our Commonwealth Defence Forces for the defence of the Commonwealth of Nations. In 1966, when Liberal Prime Minister Holt took over, he took away our lawful pounds, shillings and pence, and that is still required by the Constitution. Instead, he brought in the Australian dollar. Once they took the money away, the government could not pay the Governor-General or the Crown with our lawful currency. The Australian dollar belongs to the political parties, and so does the debt. When Whitlam, an avowed communist Fabian, that is a soft communist, took the Queen out of the Constitution by changing the Royal Styles and Titles Act, without the permission of the people, voting in a referendum, as required by the Constitution, he committed high treason. Unfortunately, when Governor-General Kerr sacked Whitlam, no one restored the monarch, and so the treason continued. After that, in 1986, Hawke tried to pass the Australia Act, again without bothering with a referendum, in his attempt to finish off the work started by Hughes and Whitlam to make Australia a republic under the United Nations. But without a referendum, the Australia Act was and has always been null and void. You cannot change the Constitution without a referendum. Ever since then, all governments have been unlawful, without any authority. And this can be easily checked by reading the preamble of our Constitution that establishes we, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, as the supreme authority. The government is supposed to be the servant of we, the people, not a dictatorship as we have today. So as you listen to our podcasts, remember this as we discuss the massive fraud by the political parties and why our country is on its knees today. And always remember that we, only we, the people of the Commonwealth, united and working together, can fix the problems and get back to lawful government of the people, by the people, for the people. Knowledge is power. And if you want to know more after hearing this, then please buy Dick Yardley's book, Australian Political and Religious Leaders, Treason, Treachery and Sabotage, where he explains it all in great detail.
If you have chosen the red pill, then there is only one place to host your website. Enlightened hosting, no censorship, domains, hosting, secure. Build your website and get online fast. www.redpillhosting.com.
Well, g'day all. I've got AmyRose with me in the studio here today, and she's actually here. How are you?
Hi, good.
That's good. Yeah, and Amy wants to have a chat with me about a few things, so settle back, have a coffee or whiskey if you want. Or if you like me, I have a rum. AmyRose, why don't you kick things off and ask me what you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so I came over to visit you because there's a lot of talk about protests, about freedom of speech, about how to be arrested. So there's lots of people who know that they're eventually going to be arrested or who believe they're going to be arrested by participating in protests. So last time, I think it was Saturday, there was about just over maybe 2,000 people at the Brisbane protest. It was all peaceful and everything was fine. Only 20 police officers there, so it was a good one. But there have been other protests and one scheduled for this weekend on the Sunshine Coast.
Ah, whereabouts?
For the Black Lives Matter.
Oh, I'm not going to that one. I think all lives matter.
So there's a big protest happening. People are aware that they might be arrested. Now, I have heard on the grapevine, but I don't know for sure, that there's a way to be arrested. What you can and what you should and shouldn't do. And I've also heard that you should just go along with it. But my instinct says if I'm going to get arrested, I'm going to fight. I don't want to be arrested. So you tell me, what's the procedure? Let's just say you're peacefully protesting. A police officer says you're under arrest.
Well, it depends on the demeanour of the policeman. If it's possible to talk to the man without any argy-bargy, the best thing to do is to say, have I committed a crime? Because they can't arrest you or take you away anywhere if you have not committed a crime. So the first thing you need to do is to establish whether he's arresting you on any charges. If he isn't, then you tell him, and hopefully they will have this piece of paper that you're going to supply, well, please read these two Supreme Court decisions where the judges said that the police have no right to arrest or even stop anybody in the street, in their car, whatever they're doing. If they're going about their normal everyday business, they have no right to arrest you unless they have reasonable suspicion to think that you have committed a crime. So but always be polite. Remember, these guys, these police, they're human beings too, and they respond to kindness and politeness. So if you start fighting, you're gone.
Okay, I saw quite a peaceful protest in Sydney, and the woman was speaking along the same lines. What have I done? What is my crime? And they presented her with some COVID-19 new legislation, but it's not legislation.
No, of course not. All it is a dictatorial.
Yeah, but they've passed these rules, and the police were following orders based on these rules. So they were not social distancing at the time. So when she asked, am I under arrest or did I commit a crime, they mentioned the rules that she had broken. So this weekend, there's going to be a bunch of people who are not observing the social distancing rules, which is 1.5 metres apart. And there may be arrests. And the police may say, when you say, what crime have I committed, they might actually read off this new COVID-19 1.5 metres apart.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? What do you say then?
Well, you ask them, can you show me the parliamentary act that was passed and approved by the Governor-General? Because that's the only law that we have in this country. We do not have dictates by political party appointees who just decide they want to control our lives.
Yeah.
So the thing is, the police have to be very careful. When people know their rights, if they start arresting people willy-nilly and they get into court, oh boy, are we going to have some fun. Because we know how to go to court and get not only these charges thrown out, but perhaps even arrest the magistrate and the police. Under common law, we can do that.
Okay, so that's in the pipeline. But what about this weekend?
No, it's not in the pipeline. We've always been protected by English common law.
Well, I mean, like when you're going to arrest the police and the magistrate, that's coming, and that's coming soon, right?
This weekend?
But this weekend, what happens when, irrespective of stating the legislation or the act or what happens if they still decide to arrest you?
Then go along.
Okay, so you don't resist even though they're...
Never resist the police, because that actually is a crime.
Okay.
Right?
So you, even though you haven't committed a crime, you still go along with the arrest even though you're innocent.
You say, I will submit to your arrest under protest.
Okay. And why do you have to say under protest?
Because once you get into court, you can claim to the magistrate or the judge, I did submit to their arrest. I offered no resistance, but I did tell them that it was under protest, which means I did not agree, but they did it anyway.
Okay. And if it comes to the point where you're in court and you say all that I didn't protest and they arrested me unlawfully, what are the consequences to that? How do you pursue?
Well, you know, the problem is we can't really protect ourselves in their courts, in their jurisdiction. Don't forget, that's not our jurisdiction. Their jurisdiction is Roman law, admiralty law. It's the same thing, right? So when you go into their court, you are automatically guilty. And yet under English common law, you are automatically innocent until proved guilty. So there is a big difference. So if you go into a court, don't go in there expecting any justice. But if there is an injustice done, that's where English common law comes in.
Okay.
So then whatever they do, if they fine you, you agree, you have to agree, right? You can't say, no, I'm not going to pay the fine, because they just chuck you in jail. But you say, I agree, under protest and under duress. And then what you do then is you come home and you prepare an affidavit stating step by step everything that happened, and you put that affidavit into us, and we will prepare a common law court case. Now what happens then, when you prepare a common law court case, you are actually putting the people on the stand, not the organisation.
Yeah.
You can't arrest a police force or a court or a business. You have to arrest the people who are actually carrying out the actions.
So there's a lot of protests coming up. The people who I never ever thought would be protesters are starting to protest all sorts of things.
Great.
So at the last protests on Saturday in Brisbane, there's a massive list of reasons why people were protesting. Everyone was joining together. This weekend, we've got people who I would have never thought are protesting for the Black Lives Matter movement. So it seems as though there may be arrests coming up, and the people who are unlawfully arrested under protest, will be able to come to you, and you will hold a common law court
We're ready now. We have the committee in place, and our committee is designed to help people form a common law court. So let me explain how that works. So let's say I get a dozen affidavits after this weekend. Doesn't matter how many, we might get 2 or 3. But the fact is, once we've got those affidavits, we send that paperwork into the National Committee, who will then work with the Common Law Court UK, who have experience in this, to prepare the paperwork for the Common Law Court. This takes time, so it's not going to happen overnight. And we're getting a lot of people ringing me up now and saying, well, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Be patient. It will come. We're very prepared for it, but we have a lot of paperwork to do. Once we get that paperwork done, then we call the people of the community to come together at a public place, and we have a place already picked out. And, you know, we might have 50 people there. We need about 20 people to form the Common Law Court.
Okay.
And what is the Common Law Court? First of all, we will give a talk. It takes about an hour to explain how the Common Law Court works, what we have to do and how we have to do it. And then we call for an election. Now, the people that will be elected will be the court adjudicator, who is not a judge. He is merely there to make sure that the proceedings happen peacefully and according to common law. Mm-hmm. Then we need a bailiff, or more than one bailiff, and these probably would be pretty burly guys, because they are going to have to arrest people, even police. You're going to have to arrest police, perhaps. We need at least one sheriff to be elected, and that sheriff can then deputise maybe the police. And because it's a common law court, the will of the people, that overrides anything that the police can do. Okay. And then we have to elect 12 jurors, 12 independent jurors from the public. Now, none of this is dictated. It must come from the community. It must be elected and selected by the community. And that is how we form a lawful common law court.
Is this going to happen in all states?
Yes.
Okay. And so people in Queensland, is it like statewide, they could come here?
No.
Okay, so people hold their own common law court.
People hold their own common law court in their community. Okay. So right now, I'm part of the National Committee, and I'm also part of the Queensland Committee. Mm-hmm. But what we're looking for now is people to volunteer to help organise common law courts in their community. So we've got people in Rockhampton, for instance, Central Queensland, people up in Cairns and Townsville who are prepared, people out west. Mm. So.
And do you have anything to offer people on how to set one up?
Yep.
Okay, well, you'll probably need to have that in the notes in this.
I will. We're preparing that now.
Okay.
But the thing is, too, we're doing a series of interviews with John Smith from the Common Law Court United Kingdom. Yeah. And he is supplying us with some great videos, which you'll find on YouTube. Mm. And listen to what he's saying, because this is all, a lot of the information that we're getting now is coming from him. I am also talking to Kevin Annett, who's a Canadian chap who formed the International Common Law Court of Justice. Mm. He's the guy that arrested the Pope Ratzinger, and a whole bunch of cardinals. Now, the cardinals are all entombed in the Vatican. They can't get out because we have common law sheriffs waiting to arrest them under the common law court order. We also have Ratzinger entombed in the Vatican, and the current Pope just got arrested the other day, and now he's up at, I think it's at Gandolfo. He can't get out either.
There's a few people been arrested, I've heard.
Yes.
Okay, I've got another question. So there's, I was under the impression we had free speech. Then I was told we had freedom
of movement.
Yeah, but freedom to speak politically. Mm-hmm. So free political speech.
We do.
But I put it on my social media that we have free speech, and then I was shot down saying we're not America, we don't have free speech. Mm. So can you explain to me, not the free political speech, but how are we able to go out, stand on the corner and start, I mean, I can imagine you standing on the corner outside the IGA talking about the things that you believe in, and then the police saying you can't speak about that.
Oh, I've done it.
So what are the actual
What's the foundation of our free speech?
Okay, well, this is a common misconception that we are not protected by any laws. They always say, oh, America's got it, but we don't have it. We do. Ever since the Magna Carta, the original Magna Carta, we have had the right to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, and a whole bunch of other freedoms, right? And then the English Bill of Rights, 1689, came in, and that guaranteed them. So we have always had these rights. What happened was the political parties for over 100 years have been dumbing people down in Australia politically. You talk to most Australians on the street and say, oh, I'd like to talk to you about politics. Oh, I don't want to talk about politics.
I know some people who didn't know who the Prime Minister was until the bushfires hit.
But this is deliberate. This is a deliberate attempt by the political parties to keep us so uninformed that we forego our rights because we don't know them. But now lots of people are waking up. We're learning that we have these rights, and I've always known we had these rights. And I, just a few years ago, I was up at Buderim, outside St. Mark's Church there, giving out flyers and everything. I was on the footpath, which is a public walkway. Public. They can't do anything to me there.
Is that because it's Crown land?
It's public land. Never mind the Crown, it's public land. We own that land. And we pay for that, you know, the upkeep. Now, the pastor of the church, who hated my guts, got the police, and they all came over, and they said, you have to move along. I said, please show me the law that states, approved by the Governor-General, that states I have to move. And they said, oh, we've got Queensland legislation. I said, Section 109 of the Constitution states that state law is subordinate to Commonwealth law, and the Commonwealth law is common law. Right? That's where Commonwealth comes from. The Commonwealth for the common man. Right? So when I started quoting the Constitution and the law at them, and they realised that I knew what I was talking about, they said, oh, okay, right, just don't go on any private property. You're free to walk here if you wish. I said, fine, thank you, bye. So the thing is, it's incumbent on us to know the law, to know our rights, and then when we are having people like the police come along and say, well, you can't do that, you talk to them rationally, calmly, and explain the law to them and say, look, if you do what you want to do, you're going to be breaking the law and I will arrest you. You can arrest anybody under citizen's arrest, right?
But you have to believe that they're committing...
You have to believe, but if you know the law, if you know your rights, and they still trample on them, then you can arrest them. And it doesn't mean you have to grab them. All you have to do is say, you have broken such and such a law, and I hereby arrest you in the name of common law. That's it.
Right. Well, that's the scope of my questions. I just wanted to know about protesting and the rights and our freedom of speech.
Well, I hope that answered your questions. I do want to make a couple of statements. First of all, I believe that these protests this weekend for Black Lives Matter is a load of rubbish, because I believe all lives matter. Never mind black or white, that's racism. And if these people are going to go to these racist rallies, then I have no sympathy for them. If they get arrested, I don't care. But I will defend them. I will defend their right. And
this is your position, and they have their position, and this is the freedom that we have to express our position on these things.
I have my right to freedom of speech and thought. They have theirs. But the thing is, if you're going to do things, do it from the right perspective. And what right do we have to protest against Black Lives Matter in America? It's got nothing to do with us. We should be standing up for our rights, to not be told we have to stand 1.5 metres apart. That's rubbish. And do you know why they're doing that?
Facial recognition?
Facial recognition. They're rushing in 5G in over 200 countries around the world at the same time. And that facial recognition is already being used in China to monitor people. And what they want is people to be apart so that they can recognise the face. Now, if you're in a big crowd, sometimes your face will be hidden.
The front line in facial recognition. Police cameras in an East London street, everyone gets scanned. If you refuse, here's what can happen.
Don't cover my face, I cover my face. Don't push me over when I'm walking down the street.
This man didn't want to be caught by the police cameras, so he covered his face. Police stopped him, they photographed him anyway. An argument followed.
How would you like it if you walk down the street and someone grabbed you? Hold yourself down, you're going to handcuff. That's you. You would like it, would you? Would you mind your neck in?
What's your suspicion?
The fact that he's walked past clearly marked
I would do the same.
thing and covered his face.
I would do the
It
same.
gives us grounds to stop
No,
him
it doesn't.
and verify.
The police said this was disorderly behaviour, so they gave him a fine.
The chap told me down the road, he said he got facial recognition. So I walked past like that. It's a cold day as well. As I've done that, the police officers asked me to come to him, so I've got me back up. I said to him, off, basically. I said, I don't want my face shown on anything. If I want to cover my face, I'll cover my face. It's not for them to tell me not to cover my face. I've got a now £90 fine. There you go, look at that. Thanks, lads, £90. Well done.
He was caught up in the last of 10 trials carried out by the Metropolitan Police. The Met have had successes. There were 3 arrests from facial recognition on this test day alone, but the trials have proved controversial. Opponents claim they're taking place in a legal vacuum.
There is nothing in UK law that has the words facial recognition. There is no legal basis for the police to be using facial recognition. There are no legal limitations on how they can use it, no policy, no regulation. This is a free-for-all. We don't know who's on the watch lists. We didn't know how long the images were going to be stored for, and the police are kind of making up the rules as they go along. My ultimate fear is that we would have live facial recognition capabilities on our gargantuan CCTV network, which is about 6 million cameras in the UK. If that happens, the nature of life in this country would change. It would mean that everywhere we go, we could be identified, tracked, that we would be leaving a location data trail, that your face could be searched and a detailed record of your movements gained.
The police argue that, in a time when every smartphone camera has facial recognition, why should they be left behind?
I believe, as does the Commissioner and the Management Board and the Met, believe not trialling such technology would be neglectful. Actually, we ought to explore all technology to see how it can keep people safer, how it can make policing more effective. However, we are completely aware of some of the concerns that are raised, and what we're doing with these trials is actually trying to understand those better so we can actually protect human rights but also keep people safe at the same time. We're reviewing all capabilities in terms of live facial recognition, and absolutely the technology is there for body-worn or smaller devices to be fitted with facial recognition technology, as is CCTV. So absolutely we will look at that, but again, the right safeguards and the right reviews and learning has to be put around that.
So if you're going to go out in crowds and they bring this in, I'm going to be wearing a mask all the time.
Well, most of us are.
Yeah. And
because they want us to wear masks.
And they tried to ban masks in Hong Kong the other day, remember? And everybody just laughed at them and said, we're wearing our masks.
Well, yeah, there's some places where there's so much pollution, if you didn't wear a mask, you'd be silly.
But the fact is, it's because of this social conditioning and social, what do they call it?
Manipulation,
yeah.
conditioning.
They want to control our lives completely. We live in a communist dictatorship. It's that simple. And now we have to get rid of it. And the reason that I left Australia in 1978 to travel overseas was because I saw what happened with Gough Whitlam in 1973. I saw what the country was becoming under the political party dictatorships, and I left. I learned a lot from being over there. I saw what coups look like. So when I came back here in 2009, not long after that, Julia Gillard staged a coup and stabbed Kevin Rudd in the back. That's when I woke up and said, hang on, there's something wrong. So
they've just continually done that since that event.
They have. They haven't had a decent proper. Well,
no.
they can't, you see, because they are a corporation registered in America. We're not governed by a corporation. It's the same as the boss of Woolies coming out and saying, well, you can't come and shop in my shop unless you walk in a certain direction. Some shops are doing that.
Yeah.
I refuse to do it.
Yeah, or use some hand sanitizer.
I don't use that either. I've never had to before, and I've never got sick.
So I think the moral of the story is we are being from all different directions.
Yeah, they're trying to take our
being
freedoms.
told what to do from the places that we shop, from the government, what we can and can't do in our own homes, schools, everything. So
they can try.
This is why there are protests.
Yeah.
The protest, the Black Lives Matter, when it comes right down to it, what I can see is there's an issue with police believing they have the power over someone else.
Well,
and that goes throughout the whole world, though. There are police who take their power for granted, and some police, and a lot of them actually are nice. I'm just going to put that out there. They're lovely. But there are some who take that position because of the power and authority it gives them. So that's just a pandemic in itself, I believe. The power that our police
I agree.
have.
Look, I've said it before and I'll say it here. The police, and this is a message to the police are men and women just like us, right? They wear a uniform and they do a different job, but they are employees of a corporation. And why do you have an ABN? If you're a policeman, why do you need an ABN to operate as a policeman against us? Because it's a corporation, just as the government has an ABN for everything. They are corporations. When did we ever agree to be governed by a corporation? Any corporation. So to the police out there, I'd like you to start thinking about your position in society. You are there to do a good job, and I realise that. But if you are harming people, you are not doing your job properly.
Did I tell you that I was going to be a police officer?
No.
Well, I went through all the training, and it was in 2001 when they were in Queensland, when they were transitioning from the police force to the police service. So they knew that the police force had negative connotations attached to it. So publicly they came out and they said, we need to attach police service to our name because we've got a bad reputation. They really did. And so they changed the whole name of it to service because they wanted to associate themselves with being at service. Unfortunately, I don't think the name changed.
What they need to do is to change the culture.
Yeah.
And I've worked with police. I've seen how that all works. And there is a police culture. Yeah. And it's us against them.
And it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
It really should be a service.
That's right.
Yeah.
But, you know, changing the name, if you don't change the culture, doesn't work. But I think that's about it.
That's about it.
Great.
Nice chatting to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming on over.
Okay, see you, mate.
Okay. Probably see you for a cup of tea.
Okay, bye.
I've been driving around this old town, driving my old car up and down, try to find my way back to you. But no matter where I go, I can't find you. Driven out so many one-way streets. I've driven out to where the highway meets, and every time I end up getting lost. Now every single day I count the cost. Wrong way, go back. I keep on heading down the same wrong track. gone the wrong way. Oh, 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 wrong way, go back. I keep on heading down the same wrong track. Wrong way, go back. There ain't no road. Gonna take me back. Ever since that day went away, the roads I drive all seem to say you're heading on the road that goes nowhere. No matter where I drive, and roads don't care. You've gone the wrong way. You've gone the wrong way. You've gone the wrong way.
If you're enjoying the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast, please consider donating to help keep us going. You can donate just once or make it a monthly donation. Any amount is welcome. To donate, go to our website at www.thebloodyausiebattler.com and click on Donate.